Hi and welcome to Nurses Move. This channel is dedicated to nurses who want to move abroad for live their life elsewhere, but is also dedicated to all nurses in general for build a community and for help each other to find a way for balanced life in and out work. Today we have invited Hannah Charman, that is a medical herbalist, to talk about how phytotherapy and use of plant can help us to live our life better. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Yes, really good, thank you.
Good. I really thank you for coming in and join us today.
Thank you.
Welcome to this channel. We talk about a different topic regarding how migrate successfully and healthily abroad. Today we wanted to talk with you about the importance of the phytotherapy and how the plants can help us live our life better. And for this, please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Right, so so I'm Hannah. My company is Physic Health Consulting, and I chose that name because Physic is the old English word for herbal medicine. So it's where the word physician, which is another name for doctor, originally came from. And I got into herbal medicine at quite a young age. I wanted to be a vet, so I studied really hard at school because it's very difficult to get into vet school. And I basically burnt out when I was 14 because I was so determined that I was going to be a vet, and I worked really, really hard, but I also had a different hobby every night of the week and doing all kinds of things at weekends. And I was very active. And then all of a sudden, literally in the space of about 5 minutes, I became unwell. And the doctors weren't able to help me. So my mum and dad took me to a homeopathic doctor and a hypnotherapist and a few others. And between all of them, they got me back on track. But that took about 2 years altogether. I never forgot how nice it was that someone actually sat and listened to me and paid an interest in what was going on and really took care of me when the doctors weren't able to do that. So I finished my A-levels when I was 18, and at the same time there was a new degree course setting up in Western Herbal Medicine at one of the London universities, and I managed to get onto that, and 4 years later I graduated and became a medical herbalist, and that's what I've been doing ever since. So it's been nearly 21 years now.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. So you discovered herbal medicine because you have some problem and you went through there. So you really understand the importance of use of plant. So and then you decide to do this career.
Yeah, it's funny how it works, because if you speak to most herbalists, they say, oh, they didn't choose herbal medicine, it kind of chose them. And I think that's the same with me. You kind of, I don't know, I just got really sucked into it, and I started getting little herbs to grow in the garden at home. And then I won a prize at school and I got a book token. So I used the book token to buy a book on herbs, which I've still got behind me on the shelf here. And it kind of grew from there, really. They kind of get you and decide that that's it. They want you to work with them, and you kind of get chosen by the plants effectively. Sounds really strange, but it is a kind of magnetism that you have with the plants. So yeah, I love it more every day, which is quite unusual, I think, if you've been doing a job for over 20 years to still love it as much as when you first started. I don't think many people can say that. So it's really, it's good. So herbal medicine, everyone in the world has a herbal tradition native to where they come from. So it's one thing that connects us all wherever we've come from. Okay. But the traditions can be quite different. So our tradition of Western herbal medicine that we have in Europe is what the new American tradition is stemmed from. But there's also a Native American tradition which has come from, the native tribes over there. In South America, they'll practice it slightly differently, but also in Asia. So Chinese medicine is slightly different to Japanese, which is different to the Ayurvedic tradition we have in India. But obviously these days it's a very small world. So in my dispensary downstairs, I have herbs from all over the world. And I try and use those herbs that are native to the part of the world that my patients come from wherever I can. So I use South American herbs for South American patients and
nice.
for Indian patients, because that makes sense to me. It's part of their DNA. Really, it's part of their culture and their tradition. So if I can use herbs that match where they come from and where they resonate with, then I do that.
Can you give us a more general overview about phytotherapy? Where can this science can help a human being doing the everyday habits,
right? Okay.
Or things? Sorry, I have echo, so sometimes. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah. So herbal medicine is very different to the modern medicine that you work in as nurses. So modern drugs have only really been around since the Second World War. So they're kind of like very new on the scene compared to herbal medicine. A lot of doctors dismiss herbal medicine as being kind of unproven or not really worthy in some way, despite the fact that a lot of modern drugs are actually derived from herbs. The way that modern medicine works is that it actually forces the body to do something that it doesn't necessarily want to do. So if blood pressure is too high, it will slowly force the blood pressure down, ignoring the causes of that high blood pressure. And sometimes it's very necessary to do that. So say, for example, let's look at general anaesthetic. Obviously, if someone needs general anaesthetic, they have to have the drugs. And, you need that to perform life-saving surgery. So it definitely has its place, but I think each side should play to its strength. So modern medicine is brilliant for heroic, life-saving medicine, life and death stuff, such as we're seeing at the moment with COVID. If someone needs to be in hospital, then the only thing that's going to work for them is everything that the hospital can offer. However, if someone is perhaps in the earlier stages of COVID, I believe personally that herbal medicine can intervene and change the course of events so that perhaps they are less likely to need hospital treatment, which I think is very valuable at the moment. And it's just a shame that more people don't realise this. And what I'm noticing as well now, we've been into this for a few weeks, is that more people who've had COVID are coming to me and saying, I'm finding it really difficult to get back on my feet again. I've got chronic fatigue, or I've got difficulty breathing. My chest still feels really tight. And even though we can't necessarily get them in for tests to see exactly what's going on, we can still use herbs to help. So the herbs are actually treating the whole person. They're not treating the individual symptoms. Although we can to some extent, but the main focus is what's going on in the whole person and what's led them to that point where they need treatment. So herbal medicine is particularly good for chronic illness or chronic sort of subclinical states where you're not ill but you're not well either, if that makes sense. And most of us sit in that category. We haven't got a diagnosed illness, but we don't feel quite right. And very early stage intervention as well. So if you've got someone who has been very newly diagnosed with a condition of some kind, then herbal medicine can usually sort of tweak things enough to get them back into a reasonably good state of health. So yeah, any scenario really apart from acute life-threatening situations, we can use herbal medicine for.
It was just something I want to tell you. If I can understand from my point of view as a nurse, tell me if I'm wrong. You say that while the modern medicine going to treat is good for treat the acute problem, the herbal medicine going to treat the long-term condition and basically can also prevent some illnesses, because in a long-term treatment can prevent as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So ideally we need to catch people when they're already fairly well, or if they're just going down that road into sickness, and we can then just steer the course of events very gently with herbs, and not just herbs, but looking at their diet and their nutrition and how stressed they are and how well they're sleeping, and bring all of that together to put them into a better state of health, if you like. So the key is really the early intervention, and it's a shame that most people have never heard of herbal medicine or medical herbalists, and they don't realize that this is an option for them, and they end up getting to a point where it's straight onto the drugs, and they may or may not be able to reduce the dose and come off those in time with herbs. So yeah, we're slowly getting out there, we're slowly getting the message across, but it's a very lengthy process, much longer than we'd like it to be.
Yeah, probably we are happy to think that
the right medicine is the modern medicine, that everything we study before is wrong, but this is not true.
No, it's not at all.
There are base evidence that say that the herbal medicine is good and it's work properly.
Well, we wouldn't have survived as a species without herbal medicine, because it's all we had to get ourselves well again.
Of course.
You know, we've always had sickness and we've always had health problems, but this is the only medicine we've had. We joke about it in our profession and we say it's the longest clinical trial in history, because it is. It's been going on forever and it's still going on now, and people are still not accepting that it really works. But because I've been using it really since my teens, I don't really know any other kind. I can't remember the last time I took a paracetamol. I think my son's had one dose of Calpol and he's nearly 6. He won't take Calpol. He wants herbal tea instead of Calpol. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, when he's up with a temperature or whatever he's got, it's not Calpol that he asks for. It's what he calls his Paulie tea. So, you know, that's just how we are in this family, and it's very rare that we have the need to use mainstream medication. Not that we're against it, but you know, it's more like a last resort for us, really.
Okay. In this channel, we talk about many different aspects about life of nurse who migrate abroad. Lots of them lead to stress and fatigue. Some of them lead to psychosomatic problem or insomnia or migraine, or definitely bad habits, because we so fed up that we start to eat too much, for example. I don't know, drink sometime when we go out too much as we should. Yes. So how herbal medicine can help to detox and to restore a balance in life for everybody, but we are already upside down with our clock. So how, yes, please, how herbal medicine can help us to restore a little bit?
Yeah, so the way I would approach that is to bring herbal medicine in as part of a wider package, but because most of us don't realise that actually, if we don't put ourselves first, we can't go to work, we can't take care of our families, we can't live a reasonably good life. And it's very easy, particularly women, to put ourselves lowest down on the list after the kids, after the patients, after everything else. The problem with that is if you don't change that around and put yourself first, at some point your body is likely to do it for you in the form of illness, which is what happens when we get chronic fatigue and burnout. And we're probably going to see this over the coming weeks and months with all the extra workload around COVID, is that you know, healthcare workers who are allowed off work sick with COVID are expected to be back within a week. It takes actually a lot longer than that to convalesce from COVID. And I understand why there's a need to get everyone back into work ASAP, but for you as individuals, it's not good, and you're going to really need to kind of pull a lot in to buffer yourself against the long-term effects of that. So I think the first thing to remember is to put yourself first and to do everything you can to take care of yourself. What I find personally is that when I'm overtired, that's when I start to go for more caffeine, more junk food, more salt. Yeah. So tiredness is a real problem, and we've got to try and make sure that we get good quality sleep. And it's difficult for you as shift workers because your sleep patterns are all over the place, but at least try and get a good 8-hour block of good quality sleep. You can use light boxes as well to kind of reset your melatonin, serotonin balance. So that's something that you could look into. But let's just say you're having difficulty sleeping. You could use herbs to help you get a better quality sleep at whatever time of day you have to go to bed. So a really good common one that you could use and you can get hold of anywhere is chamomile tea. So you can get that anywhere in cafes and supermarkets, but use 2 tea bags for a mugful, because 1 tea bag is not going to be strong enough probably to do what you need it to do. So 2 tea bags, make sure it brews for 5 minutes and that it's covered whilst it's brewing. So maybe use a teapot or a cafetiere, and then have that before bed, and that should really help you to relax and get a good night's sleep. But also you could look at Epsom salts, foot baths. So Epsom salts are pure magnesium. Magnesium helps to relax your muscles. So it helps really relax you before bed. If you haven't got a bath or you can't get in the bath for whatever reason.
I used to sometimes because I really enjoy very warm bath with Epsom salt, yes. Yeah,
it's really good. So if you can't manage a full-on bath, you could use a foot bath instead, which is just basically a washing up bowl, hot water, probably about a couple of Epsom salts, and try and incorporate that into your bedtime routine. Because I think you need a lot of extra self-care at the moment, and just the ritual of making yourself a foot bath and sitting and soaking your feet for 20 minutes, I think is really nurturing and really nourishing for you. So that should help you to get some sleep. If the chamomile tea and the Epsom salts foot baths don't quite work, then I have got some stronger herbs that you can take, which will kind of knock you out a little bit more and sort of send you into a deeper sleep. But we would probably need to have a longer discussion about that on a one-to-one basis. But what people often find with sleep is that it's actually not getting to sleep that's the problem. It's waking up again in the middle of the night and not being able to get back to sleep. And that's a sign of chronic exhaustion. Actually, that's the adrenal glands that are being depleted. And that's a kind of whole different thing to treat with herbs. So what we want to try and avoid really is this kind of burnout scenario where we've been on the go for years and years and years in many cases, and at some point the body starts to just say, enough, I am going to force you to rest one way or another, and it just lays you flat out for can be years. We don't want to let things get that out of hand really. So stress is really anything that's going to knock us out of balance, whether it be emotional stress, whether it be the fact that we're smoking cigarettes that are affecting our body, or drinking alcohol, or whatever it is, or eating food that isn't very nutritious for us. Anything that kind of starts to knock us out of balance is a stress of some kind. And obviously we want to try and keep that to a minimum. So in terms of emotional stress, obviously emotions are running very high at the moment. So you need to put extra measures in place to try and counteract that, because stress is something that we've always had to deal with ever since our cavewoman days. But we can put measures in place to help kind of buffer the effects of the stress on us. And so more recently, you've probably noticed things like meditation and mindfulness techniques have become very popular.
Yeah, people start to understand different things, because as I said before, we saw habits, we are fixed probably in our mind that medicine and pills are the just right things can cure everything, that we forgot all the good habits what we need for live our life. So for example, breathing techniques that if you're going to see it's yoga or meditation, we got those techniques from thousands of years.
Meditation, mindfulness in the traditional sense is not for everyone. Some people would really struggle to sit and be quiet and switch off, even for 5 minutes. So maybe look at other things you could do instead. A creative hobby, for example, is really good, or changing the exercise that you do, because that always gets you absorbed in what you're doing. Effectively, if you're going for a run, you're concentrating on where you're going. you haven't got space for any other thoughts that are going to worry you or depress you. And the same if you do something creative, so whether it's baking or gardening or making something, that's still a form of meditation, but it's a more active form. So again, in terms of herbs for chronic stress, there's two main classes that we use. So our herbs are kind of grouped into what we call main actions, and the actions are what the effect they have is on the body. So you will know about diuretics. We have herbal diuretics, so you understand what those do, and you understand what expectorants do. And we use the same terms in herbal medicines. So we have nervines. Nervines are herbs that have a very direct action upon the nervous system, and they help us when we are under extra stress. So chamomile would be a good example of a nervine because it helps to calm us down, helps to aid restful sleep, and it helps particularly when stress is aggravating the digestion. So people who get irritable bowel syndrome, or they get flare-ups of colitis or something because they're emotionally stressed, chamomile is very good for that. St. John's wort is another example you've probably heard of, because mainly because of the concerns over interactions with other drugs, which is like probably a discussion for another time. That's quite a big topic. But St. John's wort was originally actually used for anxiety, not depression. So back in the days, its main action was for anxiety. But it was specifically used for when people were hallucinating with their anxiety. It used to take them out of that state and help them to calm down. So nowadays, it's probably better known for its action as an antidepressant, basically. And there's been a lot of research around that about 20 years ago, saying that it was as effective as Prozac, but without the side effects, which I personally believe it is. And then a lot of research came out saying that it was not safe to use with certain medication around about the same time. So you can draw your own conclusions from that, but certainly in professional herbal medicine practice, we never used to see these interactions with St. John's wort and other medication until all this came out. So St. John's wort is very good for lifting depression, although it works like a mainstream SSRI in that it can take a good 2 to 4 weeks really to get going. So we would need to mix St. John's wort in with some other herbs which will act faster and start to lift that person straight away if they're depressed. So those are the nervines, and then we also have adaptogens, and adaptogens work in quite a different way because they have a more general action on the body. So if I give someone an adaptogen in their herbal mix, they will generally come back after 2 or 3 weeks and say, I feel different, I feel better, but I can't explain how. And it's a non-specific, just generally feeling better, without being able to say, yes, my chest feels clearer, or yes, my tummy is calmed down, because adaptogens work on the whole body at the same time. And different adaptogens do different things. So each herb has got its own sort of profile in terms of what it's going to do in that person. So one adaptogen you've probably heard of would be Siberian Ginseng. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah.
So Siberian Ginseng is a herb that we tend to use when someone's immune system has been impacted by chronic stress and it's depleted, and that will start to lift the immune system up again. It's for the people who work hard and play hard, which very often is nurses, isn't it?
We have.
Like you were just saying. So the people who are constantly on the go, don't really get to slow down and take time out for themselves, they will often benefit from having Siberian Ginseng. Licorice is another nice one that you might have heard of. So licorice, you get lots of herbal teas with licorice in. You really want to kind of keep the dose quite low. You can have it over a long period of time, provided that you haven't got high blood pressure, and just keep little doses going in regularly. But that actually helps your adrenal glands to conserve cortisol, which is obviously one of your main stress hormones. So what adaptogens will generally do is help your body out of its stress response, even if the stressful situation is still ongoing. So it will lessen the impact upon your blood pressure, your digestion, your liver, and all the other things that generally have to be overworked when you're stressed. They're very clever. It works really well. And then into that, you'd have to build some extra nutrition as well, making sure that you're eating properly. So that would be a big part of the package, but also we would need to make sure that you're eating really nutritious food, combining your protein with your slow releasing carbohydrates so that you're not getting these kind of peaks and troughs in your blood sugar all day. What we want to do is raise your blood sugar, keep it nice and high so that you stay nice and energized throughout your shift, and then let it drop off towards the end. And that really requires eating small regular meals, or certainly plenty of snacks, but with protein and slow releasing carb to keep you nourished and energized. So, and then you can also use supplements too. So good supplements for long periods of stress would be things like B vitamins, very important. And again, with the sort of exposure that you're getting to the various infections at the moment, I would suggest you have vitamin D, vitamin C, and those sorts of things to help increase your immunity as well. So melatonin is a bit of a problem that we're noticing with complications from COVID, and shift workers can have up to 50% less melatonin than non-shift workers. So it's an occupational hazard for you as nurses, because not only do you have less melatonin, you probably have less vitamin D as well, which also seems to be implicated. So definitely make sure that you supplement vitamin D. Unfortunately, we can't supplement melatonin in the UK. It's illegal to buy as a supplement.
I know, because I come from Italy, and I do apologize for my English there sometimes, I lost words, because not my first language, so sorry. Thank you for be patient with me. And yes, I come from Italy. In Italy, melatonin is not really shop drug, but you can go to the pharmacy and ask without prescription. And I used to use melatonin in Italy because I always prefer herbal remedy instead, just tablets. So I used it in Italy, but when I come here, I couldn't buy anymore. So
no, apparently you can get it on prescription, but I would probably think you'd find it difficult to do that at the moment. So your best bet is to make sure you're making your own melatonin as best you can, and there are ways we can do that. I have actually done a free download for nurses on this kind of thing and how to protect yourself against stress and burnout. So I'll send you the link for that after, but it tells you all the foods that are going to increase your melatonin levels. So yeah, there's a lot we can do with herbal medicine, but it's all about tailoring the medicine and the treatment to you, depending on what's going on for you at the time. And as time goes by, we then change your prescription. So you get to prioritize how you want your medicine to work for you. So let's just say you've got 10 different health problems you need to work on, which is not unusual. Then I'll start by saying, okay, well, where do you want to start with this? And you'll say, okay, well, the most urgent problem is my chronic fatigue or my headaches, and then we'll build the medicine around that. And then as that starts to get better, then we can start addressing the other problems. But it's very gentle, it's very safe, and it's actually very nice for people to have a medicine that's been made especially for them. I suppose it's like, having a house built for you or having your clothes tailored for you. It just makes you feel very different to going and getting something off the shelf, doesn't it? So
yeah, it's nice.
And it's empowering for you as well, because you start to learn more about how things have gone wrong for you and how you can change things for the better and get yourself a long-term improvement, which I think is what it's all about. And I'm hoping that over time mainstream medicine is going to sort of start bringing these ideas in a little bit more, because I don't think that healthcare as it is at the moment is going to be sustainable for too much longer.
No, I think it's going to change quite radically. I want just to say something more about this. Here in this channel, we talk about wellness for nurses in general, actually. How can we help each other and be the community? But it's focused on nurses who move abroad, as I told you before. This point is very important because some nurses move abroad because they need money, okay? So some nurses move abroad alone and left back at home their family. And they push themselves so much for work, for have extra money at the end of the month, for they send back home that sometimes they do this with maybe chronic illnesses.
Yeah.
So they push so much that they just put in tablets or hate it so much for, don't know, for be able to survive,
Yeah.
in terms of stress as well. So I focus to nurses who move abroad just because they do an extra mile over the extra mile nurse already done. So yes, it should be nice, really be able to understand that there is alternative, can really help better.
Yeah, and at this time of year, if people are kind of mindful of how much they're spending, the herbs are free. They're out there. They're on the hedgerows. This is the best time of year to go foraging. You can make quite a lot of the medicine you need at home, really simply, just going out on your daily walk. So it doesn't need to cost a great deal. Herbal medicine is the original people's medicine. It's not meant to be complicated. It's not really meant to be expensive. Where it gets expensive is if someone's got very complex health issues that need a lot of work and, very high doses of medicine to put right. But actually, for day-to-day stuff, right now, you can go out into the hedgerows, into the fields and the woods, or even into your garden and just
do this. Is very good for the mood. You can really enjoy doing it.
It is. There's something really wonderful about making your own medicine from herbs, and it's something that the pharmaceutical companies are never going to experience. They're never going to get that magic and that real essence. That's kind of instinctive because it's what we've always done. It's what your ancestors would have done since the start of time, and it's an instinctive thing to make your own medicine from plants, I think. And when people come on my workshops and they get hands-on with making and preparing their own medicines, they understand what that means.
My connection is nearly to go, but we already talked about everything, I think. And Anna, I really thank you. But before I leave you, I would like to ask you if some other nurses want to contact you, have a chat with you, where can they find you?
So I have a Facebook page, which is Physic Health Consulting. So Physic is spelled PHYSIC, and then Health Consulting. And then I have my website at www.physichealth.uk as well. And there's lots of free blogs on there and some downloads and lots of interesting stuff that you can have a look at. But anytime you want to have a chat, I do a free call, so you can just book in for one of those and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. So yeah.
Brilliant.
Cool. Thank you very much. It's been really nice chatting to you.
Thank you. It was really nice to have you with us. And sorry again for my English, but we get the point finally.
Good. It's much better than
No, please. Thank you, by the way.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you
See
very
you soon.
much.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye. Bye. Bye.